Okay, so welcome everybody. Today is our second series in the 4-week seminar called Karma Theory. So before I get into Karma Theory, I'll do a little bit of recap from last week. A couple of new people who weren't here last week. So we talked about yoga. So anybody wants to say the definition was means to link. And we also talked about that this is a path that connects the living entity to the absolute truth, or the supreme, or God. Then we talked about who am I? All of us have these questions of our identity. And there are multiple people think of multiple things that are related to the body. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm Indian, American, multiple things. But what the Vedas say, the Vedas state that behind all these designations, we are a spirit soul, a spiritual being. And being a spirit soul, we are eternal, cognizant, and blissful. But again, we talked about that we don't feel these things in our current lives. And the reason for that is, I'll just go. So we don't feel eternal because there is life and death. We don't feel cognizant. Cognizant means we're aware, but at the same time, we're trying to gain knowledge from outside, where the soul is full of knowledge. And blissful. We're happy sometimes, sometimes not, but the true natural propensity is to be happy always. And the reason why we don't feel these things is because we are covered. There are two kinds of coverings, the subtle body and the gross body. Anybody wants to tell me what the subtle body is made up of? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So we all know what mind and intelligence is. False ego is a wrong sense of identity. We talked about the gross body. What is the gross body made up of?
Earth, water, fire,
You can
ether.
speak up.
Earth, water, fire, ether.
So earth, water, fire, air, ether, and we also discussed how these are part of our body, the material body that we have. And we talked about the similarity between human beings and animals, the bodily kind of activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Animals and humans both do the same thing. The difference between the two things is the spirit of inquiry, or dharma. And we also talked about that this spirit of inquiry goes into all these different things that we explore, the scientific process, everything around us. We're always trying to gain knowledge, find out how things are, how they work. And this starts our today's topic, is how come we never ask? How can we never use this sense of inquiry to find out about the absolute truth? I mean, you guys are here because you have that inquiry, but there are a lot of people out there who never think of this, and they spend their entire lives. So let me ask you, why do you think people don't ask this question?
Preoccupied with their lives.
Okay, preoccupied.
It might never. Oh, sorry.
Save it for later.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter right now.
Okay.
It might never occur to them also that there is something called the absolute truth. Because everything might be good for them. Like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they have everything. So.
Actually, Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. He says that ignorance or unaware of the existence of the absolute truth. So whatever we are taught to do, we just do that without questioning life, without questioning ourselves. That, am I really meant to do this? Am I really happy? Is this what I'm meant for? Is this the purpose of life? So that builds into the Chinese story. Sometimes, people, think things are good or bad. So there was a Chinese farmer who had a horse, and one day the horse ran away. And his villagers and friends, they came and said, "Oh, how unfortunate, your horse ran away. You had only one horse." And the farmer was like, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" And then a few days later, the horse came back with a mare. So now he had 2 horses. So everybody's like, "Oh, how wonderful. You have 2 horses. You must be so fortunate." Is it good fortune, bad fortune? Who knows? Then his son was riding the the mare and was trying to train the mare, and in the process fell down from the horse and broke his leg. And everybody came in and says, "Oh, how unfortunate, your son broke his leg." And they said, "Good fortune, bad fortune. Who knows?" Then, a few months later, there was the king of the land who declared war on the neighboring kingdom. And every man between the age of 18 and above was drafted for war. And this farmer's son wasn't, because his leg was broken. And so everybody was crying in the village, and they were like, "Oh, this is what happened to us, but you're so fortunate." And he said, "Good fortune, bad fortune. Who knows?" And so the story continues like that. But the point is that we look at a certain situation in life, and then we put our mind to it, and we decide whether it's good or bad. And that decision is generally meant on sense gratification. So when the five senses come in touch with the sense objects, so something good to see, something good to hear, something good to smell, something good to eat, we are like, "Oh, life is good." And the moment that's not there, life is bad. And that is the bodily conception of life. So anything we do, career, relationships, money, we're constantly looking for this sense gratification, the happiness, or a sense of satisfaction. And a lot of times, how many of you have had a job where your bosses weren't very nice? We have professors who are sometimes not so nice. So, they're not the constantly happy kind of thing. They're very temporary relationships. Almost every single friend I knew who was dating in IIT at the time I was a student, right now they're dating somebody else. And these people, you wouldn't even imagine that they could think of another person in their lives, but there was somebody else. And when they get married, it's another person. So relationship-wise, that's very temporary as well. And money. We all know that. Somebody Bill Gates was the richest person a few years ago, now it's Warren Buffett, tomorrow's going to be somebody else. So all these things that we try to do with the senses and sense objects is all bodily, on the platform of the body, which is matter. And the soul is conscious, eternal, full of knowledge. Matter is just the opposite of the soul. Anybody? What is matter?
Temporary.
Temporary? Dull?
It doesn't do any thinking or anything.
Right.
It just
So
exists.
pretty much dead. So that is what the body is. The moment the soul leaves the body, it's as good as this. You can slap the person, you can do whatever you want, the dead body won't get up. But the moment the soul enters the body, it's animated. It's doing wonderful things, thinking, feeling, willing. So that's the difference between soul and matter. And so these mind, when we are going through mind and the five senses, this mind and the five senses determine what kind of action we're going to take. So I look at the ice cream, and my mind says, "Ooh, I want that ice cream." And then, so I'll talk about two kinds of action, the subtle form and the gross form. So in the subtle sense, the mind is thinking, "I want that ice cream." The thinking, feeling, willing. Look at it, and then, "Oh, this is really nice. I'm feeling it." And then I want it. So you take out the wallet, take out the credit card, and you actually purchase the ice cream. So that's the gross work. So when, in the subtle level, I'll repeat again, you're thinking, you're feeling, and when you're willing, the mind tells the subtle body tells the gross body, "Now go get it." So you do the gross action. And for every action, there is a reaction. Does that make sense? For every action, you punch somebody, you get a black eye back. And that's an instant reaction, but there are reactions that happen over several years, months, or even lifetimes. So this whole process of action and reaction is called karma. Karma means activity, and activity includes action and reaction. So the soul, by nature, is very pure. Like I said, it's full of happiness. blissful, it's eternal, it's cognizant. But then it comes into contact with matter, which is the body, the gross and the subtle body. And so the conscious living entity comes in contact with dead, dull matter. And the whole process is now unnatural. And that is the cause of all sufferings. So the way to understand is the soul now looks out to the world. Anything it perceives is through the filter of the mind. And the mind has the false ego. So the subtle body, I'm rich, I'm a man, I'm wise. So automatically when you're thinking you're a man, you're looking for women. When you're thinking you're wise, okay, so this is actually, it came from investors. So I have business, and there are investors with a lot of money, a lot of experience, and they generally like to think that because I have money and experience, I'm wise. So anything I say is right, and that's true for a lot of people, a lot of scientists, so that's how they see the world. And even if something goes wrong, they might agree, might not, depending on the honesty, but that is how they see the world. Let's say I'm an Indian. Okay, now I'll see things from an Indian's perspective. I have my own culture, I have my own food, all kinds of things that I'm brought up with. And that's how the mind is conditioned. And that's how I see the world. And so the soul, although it's completely pure in nature, when it's seeing it through the filters of the mind, that's completely deviated. And whatever the mind is telling you to do, that yields to action and reaction, action and reaction. And it's a closed loop process. So constantly you're thinking, feeling, willing, you're committing action and you're getting reaction, and based on that reaction, you're committing more action, and the whole process continues. In fact, the whole process continues even after death. We go from one body to another body based on the kind of desires and the kind of activities that we have in this life. So the mind has certain activities, and those activities lead to certain circumstances, and those circumstances build more desire for more certain kind of activities, and accordingly we get that kind of body. So it is fully up to us what happens to us after death. And the Vedas give its own classification of life forms. There are 8.4 million kinds of life forms. And this will not, if you're a modern scientist, this will not work according to your classification, because that's not how the creator created. But this is how the Vedas distinguish. There are 900,000 acrobatics, 2 million plants, trees. It's called inanimate objects. 1.1 million germs and insects. 1 million, 1 million avians, so birds, anything that flies. 3 million animals, and 400,000 kinds of humans. So, we already know there are all kinds of human beings, but 400,000 is a pretty high number. And that includes not just people from this planet, but also higher beings and lower beings from other planetary systems. So this is kind of a nice snapshot of how we act in this life, and next life you get accordingly. So let's say the top right picture. So somebody's cutting meat, so you like to eat meat. So this body is not the best perfect match for eating meat. So you get a tiger's body. You have nice canines, you have nice digestive system that has very acidic in nature, and a small intestine, and you can just eat meat and it gets out of the system. So perfect body. Accordingly, as you like to do, so that person like to sleep a lot. So okay, a bear body, you sleep for 6 months. So accordingly, as your desire is, you get that kind of a body. So given this birth, our human birth, according to our karmic action, we can be born as human beings, or we could go down to the lower species, or we can be born as higher beings. So they're the universal controllers, the demigods, or devatas as we call them. And this is all possible through the karmic actions and reactions. But I'll do that. So the only place where you accumulate karma is the human form of life. Everywhere else you're expending that karma. So in the higher beings, you have great karma, very good karma, so you're in the heavenly planets. And you're, acting out your karma. But once you finish the credits, you come down to the human form of life. And when you go to the lower species, a tiger is never implicated for killing another animal. There is no karma for that. Birds, trees, animals, they don't incur karma, but they're living out the karmic reactions that they got in the human form of life. So the point is, wherever you are, you come back to the human form of life. And so this human form of life is extremely valuable. And at the same time, very, very risky. Valuable because given this is all in the material world, there's a whole different realm outside the universal system. The system of universes, that's a spiritual realm. And the process of yoga is exactly that. It brings a human being from the material world all the way out to the spiritual world. And there, you're in your truest form, your most pure form. You're eternal, cognizant, completely blissful. There is no more birth and death. There is no more being born in different. There is no karma, and there is no time in the spiritual world. So, anything that's bodily related that we do here, all the activities are performed in the material world. But there are karma. I shouldn't call them karma, but there are activities that you can perform, and they don't incur any kind of karma. And that is any activity that is connected to the Supreme, connected to our soul. So when we are connected to activities that are in true nature, true identity of the soul, we don't incur karma. And at the end of life, it is stated, if you live a life of higher consciousness, you go to a higher place. So Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavan tyajate ante kalevaram tam tam ed evayati kanteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Which means, whatever you're thinking at the end of your life, that is the kind of body you get. And if you're thinking of something spiritual, you go to the spiritual world. So that's why this human form of life, and that's only possible in the human form of life, because that is the karmic things happen there. And that's why this is our opportunity to completely cut through this circle of birth and death, and go back to the spiritual world.
Excuse me. How do you go from the lower species to human beings? When you spend all your karma, you go back, you are born
So,
as human being?
The lower species it's a natural progression. You don't have to do any kind of karma. The karma brings you to a certain species, certain level of species. But then from there onwards to the human form, it's just a natural process, birth, death, and you go progress. Through the 8 million, wherever you are, you come back to human.
And when you are a human being, you only add up your karma, you don't spend your karma.
You spend and add, but at least you're incurring karma. But the thing is, let's say you're spending karma, but that's leading to certain circumstances. Let's say I have really good karma, so I'm born in a royal family. Now, I'm enjoying that, I'm expending that karma of good birth, but let's say with that I have enough money, I have access to women, I have access to whatever I want pretty much. And I can use my free will at any point to do the right or wrong. So I could take up a good life, or I could be completely, do whatever I want. And that leads to karma again. So whether it's good or bad, the point is you're still stuck in the material realm. Does it clarify?
Yeah.
So which is the animal which is before human being?
So there are 3 gateways to human beings. One is cow, one is monkey, and the third one. Can you remember? Yeah.
Lion or tiger?
Yeah, it was probably lion or tiger. So there are 3 gateways to the human form, and there we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks about the 3 modes of nature: Satya, Rajas, and Tamas, and those are 3 different modes that come through. So I'll just finish it up, and we can open up for questions. So the Vedas say Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That's the Vedanta Sutra. And that means, therefore, now, Atha, therefore, Atha, now, inquire into the absolute. Because, so what it says is, now that you have a human form of body, and now that you have the capacity to learn about these higher topics, inquire into the absolute. And so that's the beginning of our journey of yoga, in the path of yoga to the spiritual world. Okay. Questions? Yes.
Can you talk a little more about desire and karma? Like, I know that you mentioned that at the time of death, whatever conceptions we have will determine our next birth. But let's say everybody at the time of death wishes to be a rich man in the next birth. Like, could you talk a little about that?
Right. So, death is a very tricky thing. It's at least described like you're going through a tunnel, it's completely dark, and there's a silent train coming. You never know when it's going to hit you. So you can never be prepared for death. So let's say you're living a very indisciplined life, let's call it. I'll be polite. And you expect that at the time of death you'll think of something good, something rich. There's a very high probability that that wouldn't happen. So let's say you want to become a rich person in the next life. And that might happen, but the point is, you never know what you would be thinking. So there is a training required. And our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, used to say, life is preparation, death is the examination. So let's say if you lead a good, conscious life, a life that is filled with good things, there is a higher probability that at the time of death, no matter when that is, you will be thinking of something good. And naturally, you will go to that place. Now, if you're thinking of something spiritual, if you're on the absolute platform, naturally, you'll go back to God. Does that answer? And also, okay, so desire, you talked about desire. So, desire is what leads us to the next body. And it's described in Bhagavad Gita, the example, because almost all of you are Indians. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is an example of the inverted banyan tree. So there is a banyan tree, which is the real picture, which is the spiritual world. And then there is the inverted reflection of that. And that's the material world. And the reflective surface is the desire. So, given the clarity of our desire, accordingly, the clarity of the spiritual realization we get. So the whole point of the yogic system is to control our mind, and when you control your mind, when you purify your mind, better way to call it, when you purify your mind, automatically the desires are purified, and they're more in line with the search of the absolute truth. And accordingly, you live a life that will lead to that. Yes?
This means the karma of a lion is to kill animals for their survival. So does it have any karmic reaction?
No. Nothing under the human species, nothing beyond, let's say, only the human beings get reaction. A lion or any kind of animal, they're doing that, like you said, for survival. But let's say when we go out hunting or shooting an animal, it's for fun. And we have the option. A lion cannot survive on carrots. We can survive on vegetarian food. So we have the free will, we have the option. And we sometimes choose to eat meat or choose to do something else. So for the lion, there is no reaction. And for animals in general, because they don't have that dharma, the slide on dharma, the sense of inquiry, they're never going to think like, why do I have this lion body? Or why am I born on this planet? What's the purpose of my lion life? So because they don't have that, we do. So we can actually ask this question and perform life, things in our life that will lead to this. So we get the karmic reaction if we don't. Does it make sense? Another way to explain that is somebody could say naturally that not everybody knows the law of karma, so It's not fair, right? So let's say you're driving in the city of Chicago and you don't know the law. Whose responsibility is it? The police is going to come and give you a ticket if you're not following the rules. The responsibility is ours to find out, ask questions and find out from authority that what is the law, what is the purpose, what is the law of nature, and what should we be doing. You had a question?
Yeah. So your karmic life, eventually, like the next body you're going to take
Mm-hmm.
is more affected from your karmic life than your last desire, right?
It's both.
Well, because like I was thinking, like let's say there's a lot of people who suicide themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So at the last point, they're thinking about death, so they can't say like, okay, so you can't really go to the spiritual world or the other one, right? Because you're just thinking like, I want to be dead
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. So then at that point, that's when your karmic life takes into place, right?
Karmic life always takes into place.
Well, yeah.
Even hold on one second. So even when you're how you die, let's say, isn't that karma? So the circumstance in which you die could lead to what kind of thoughts you were having at the time. And so it's free will, it's training, and also it's what I always do generally. So suicide, I'll talk about, that's a special case. But in general, the situation in which we die generally is determined from karma. So accordingly, I kind of lost the question was, sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
No, I'm just saying that like whatever form you take in the next life is like, I know your karmic life will always take place. I'm just saying it's more like that than your actual last desire.
Your last desire is actually what makes the distinction, because there have been people, and this I'm speaking from scriptures, that led a very different life, but at the time of death. So I'll talk about the story in details. There was this person who was born in a pious family, was pious till he was a teenager, and then he left. He got married and had kids, but he left his wife, went to a prostitute, and had led the entire life with her. And then when he was like around 60 years old, about to die, he was feeling very affectionate towards his son Narayana, and Narayana is one of the names of God. So when he was about to die, he was very scared, and he screamed out, "Narayana, please come and help me." And so the death messengers came, and they were like, okay, should we take him to hell, or is he going back to spiritual world because he's thinking of God? But he's actually not, but the point is he's saying the name of God. And so there's this whole description about what happens. But the point is, because of that, he was given a chance to live longer and to streamline his life and go back to the spiritual world. So the point is, yes, if it so happens accidentally that you're thinking the right thing at the right time, yes, that's what decides what your next body is, or if you don't get a body at all. With suicide, that's as good as killing somebody. So you're abruptly cutting off somebody's karmic cycle. And in the way it's defined is, so that soul does not get a body till the natural, lifespan, whatever that was supposed to be. So it's a very terrible way to live, because it's the soul encaged in a subtle body, and the subtle body is wandering around without a body to get into, and it's really hard because you still have feelings, you still can perceive things, but you just don't have a body. So that's suicide. But generally, yes, if you have the right desire at the right time, you get the next body accordingly.
Is there anything written about how many lives you need to take the next step? I mean, to go to the next level.
Next level, from human birth
Yeah.
to spiritual.
Yeah.
It can be in a moment. It depends on the person. It depends on our free will. We decide that. So, for example, for some people, they take it up instantly. For some people, like myself, it took me 6 years to actually start meditating and start, give up certain things, and so it depends on the person and their preconceived notions and how attached they are to certain ideas. Yes.
when it comes to human being, okay, everybody says that eating meat is considered not good, and they say that we can eat vegetables, and so we should eat vegetables, and we should not kill animals to eat. So why is this? What do you say? Inequality. You know, for me it's inequality. For me it's all same. Either it's plant or animal. Okay. Because I have my own idea behind it is that you kill animal or you kill plant. It doesn't make a difference.
Do you
What do
really
you think
think so?
about this? What? Yeah.
Do you really think so?
Yeah.
So, killing an animal, the amount of suffering that that animal goes through, and killing the plant, it's really the same. Like killing, let's say, a goat or a cow,
Yeah.
and killing a carrot plant or whatever, cauliflower. Same thing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
What I think is, as a human being, when we see animal, we can easily resemble ourselves with the animal because they have got feet, they have got hand, they have got face. You know. The plants, they don't move first of all. Okay. So for most of human beings, plant is just like an object. It's like table. Okay. They don't react. So they say, so they feel that they don't feel. You know. That's what people think about while eating vegetables. But like right from the school, we know that they are living organisms, right?
Mhm.
Now, what I see, okay, it's how you look at the things, okay. For me, killing plant is equal because it is crying, but it's just that you don't know, you cannot hear it, you know. That's what I think. So it's same, and you cannot survive without killing anybody. That's the reality. It's
Okay.
impossible.
So, you're right. Killing an animal, killing a plant, both have karma. You are killing an entity. So, you know, when you're uprooting a carrot, you're basically killing the whole plant. When you're picking a cabbage, maybe you're just taking a part of it. But in
That's
both
more
cases,
horrible. That's more horrible.
I don't know how the plant feels, but there is karma for that. But is it the same? No. At least how the Vedas describe it. Well, even from common sense, you can easily tell that the plant's consciousness, yes, the plant is a very, very, anybody I know believes plants are living, and they show all symptoms of life. But at the same time, it's understood that their consciousness is not at a level where our consciousness is. Or a cow's consciousness. When you steal a cow's calf, the cow cries. You know, it's looking for its calf. It exhibits that form of, you know, consciousness, that form of motherliness, that form of love and affection. A plant, whereas, doesn't necessarily show that.
That's what the problem is, you know. Like I know that few insects
Mhm.
out there, they could see many colors.
Mhm.
You know, the colors that we cannot see. Okay, but that doesn't mean the colors don't exist. You know, that makes a difference. The way you're saying the consciousness, we can see.
They have consciousness.
Yeah, they have
And
consciousness.
I'm saying they're diminished. They're diminished from what a consciousness of an animal is. And so the process is to leave the lowest amount of footprint, as they call it, the carbon footprint. So create the least amount of mess, if I may call, or least amount of destruction. So if we have a choice, why not eat plants than animals? Now, both have karma, and like I said, there are activities. When you connect that to the Supreme, so in the Vedic process, we offer our food first to the source where the food is coming from. And when you connect things to the source, there is no karma. The karma is taken off. So accordingly, when we lead our lives like that, every action, if it is connected to the source or the Supreme, then the karmic part is taken out of the equation. So yes, you're right in the sense that vegetarian and animal both are hurting, but at the same time, they're not the same. They're not the equal. And I think it's common sense to understand that a plant has lesser feelings than an animal. And on the other side, the karma is also lesser on the plants, but there is karma, and when you have karma, you have to come back to the bodily form of life. you have to have a body. And with every body, you have birth, you have death, you have old age, and you have disease. So those are the sufferings of the material world. There are other sufferings too. There are the other living entities. There is, hurricanes and tornadoes. So things from natural disaster. There are things from our own mind. People get into depression. So all these things come with the bodily form of life. And so once you have karma, good or bad, less or more, you have a body, and when you have a body, you go through that. The point is to get out of that system and just completely be eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge at all times. Point is, it's a temporary place. Let's go to a happier place.
I also maybe a point that might help. One thing also, according to Vedic scripture, is that killed animals cannot be offered or cannot be reconnected to the source. So it's only vegetarian bodied entities, I guess you could say, that are able to be offered, and so the karma is removed. So in that case, yes, violence is committed initially, in animal slaughter or in plant slaughter, if you want to call it that. But because plants are able to be reconnected to the source, the karmic reaction is removed for us to safely consume, if you want to put it that way. And also the plant the soul that was inhabiting the plant body also gets benefit because it was reconnected to the source.
Yeah. So for the yogic process, so we're talking about the karmic. In the yogic process, we only eat vegetarian food, and because that can be offered. We also drink milk, and there are certain kinds of food that we don't eat, that are even vegetarian we don't eat, like onion and garlic, for example, because they have their own. So the Vedic process, the yogic process, is very particular, because in this process we are not trying to gratify our senses. It is for understanding the spiritual reality, and it's for understanding the source and getting there. So we do everything, align our lives accordingly to fit that path of yoga.
Can I add a
Sure.
point? A couple of slides earlier you said
Which one?
the levels of transition. Exactly.
Okay.
So you said a human being can become an animal and things like that. So by killing an animal, are you actually interrupting its own karmic process?
Yes.
So is that a reason for you not to kill and to become a vegetarian, in the sense?
Yeah, that could be a reason.
Okay. Is that a justification, or is it a bad justification?
Well, the word
Inaccurate.
is mamsaha. So in the Vedic scriptures, it is in the Manu Samhita, it is given that if people cannot really control their tongue and the urge is really strong, then there's a process of eating meat. So outside the village, in a Kali temple, on the new moon night, you personally kill a goat, and while killing, you whisper into the ear of the goat saying, Mam Saha, as to you, unto me. So this life I take your life, next life you can take mine. The point is, Vedas are all inclusive. Vedas are all inclusive. So if somebody has the urge to eat meat, that is taken into account, but the process is still elevating, because after killing so many goats and telling them so many times, next life you can take my birth, at one point you'll question, how many births do you have to take as in a goat body and get killed, right?
So can you actually transition down to a plant?
Yeah.
In the process?
Yeah.
How does that occur? I don't understand that.
Well, it depends on the modes of nature that you're acting on, and we'll talk about modes of nature in a couple of weeks. But just to answer your question, and Srila Prabhupada used to say that people who like to be naked all the time are born as trees. So let's talk about the nudists. If that's your propensity, so you're born as a tree body, and you go through the seasons, in that form. But again, the law of karma is very hard. Like, it's very individualistic. So I cannot predict what's your karmic life is going to be. So it's every minute, every second you're spending, that's deciding that. But the point is, we can understand it's there and appreciate that what it brings along. But it's very hard to say how you get a certain plant body, how you get a rose body versus the marigold body, right? So that's hard to predict. But the point is, we at least know that it exists.
What is the difference in higher beings and the spiritual?
So the higher beings, you can be a demigod. Like for example, if you have to be Indra, you can do 100 Ashwamedh Yagyas, sacrifices, and you can become Indra in next life. But you cannot go to the spiritual world. This is material, this is for souls that do material activities, very good activities, very pious activities. You go to those planetary systems and you become those people. But again, you have to come back to the human form of life once your karmic credits are used up. Doesn't make sense? And then you have to start from zero again.
Is it like something like Nakula Sahadeva were actually Ashwini people who came down?
I don't know the details. Maybe.
Is this recorded somewhere? Whatever we do? Practically.
I'm sorry?
I mean, is this recorded?
Yeah,
anywhere?
yeah. Chitragupta, he is Yamaduta's secretary. So he has like hard drives that filled with terabytes of information about our lives.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, it's constantly recorded, and super soul is inside us. So God has three features. I think last semester we covered that. So Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. So Paramatma is constantly witnessing that. That's his role, and allowing us to deal with material nature. So he's constantly seeing what we're doing, and those things are being recorded. So every activity is being witnessed, and every desire is being witnessed. That's why. So who makes that call? That because you like to eat meat, you are going to be born in a tiger's body. That's seen by Super Soul, and he's making that arrangement for you, so you can fulfill that desire. Right? So yeah, that's because he's there, witnessing it. No privacy, right?
The past couple of days I've been dreaming of his life.
Yes.
Okay, what is this? What is this so-called absolute truth that everybody should, we should get that absolute, we should reach the absolute truth, because this term, it means a lot of things. Absolute truth.
Yeah.
Different religion interpret in a different way. Okay, and this is very complicated.
Right. So that's why we're starting here, and then one day we'll get all the way up to there.
But it's not so simple.
It's not simple at all. It's very. It takes a lot from our side, and it takes a lot from. Previous week we talked about we need a guide, a guru, spiritual master. So it takes that from that side too. So it's a both-way process, and it takes from our side really determination that we want to pursue this route, and then things become easier. It's not never easy, but it becomes easier. But the biggest obstacles are from our side, our own attachments, our own understanding of things. And yes, absolute, many religions say many things, and there are many definitions, but at least what I have learned in the last 6 years in my pursuit, it's very clear and very obvious. So we'll talk about those things in the future classes, and it's a process. It's a lot. Vedic scriptures are unlimited. So to narrow down on this path of yoga, it's a long process. So we'll talk about every topic in different classes. Yes.
Can you give some tips to get rid of karmic reactions?
Very nice question. Because you've been coming, you're not a new person. I can. So we call Krishna as God, all attractive, and in our activities, anytime we can remember Him and do that activity as an offering to Krishna, you're definitely in that process. So for example, I'll give you my example. When I wake up in the morning, I go to the bathroom, get ready, and then I chant my rounds. So I meditate. So actually directly associating with God through His name. And after that, I work. When I'm working, I recognize, okay, everything that's coming, the source of all sources is God. So I'm grateful for that, and then I start my work. If somebody appreciates, I give the credit back to Krishna, because I know where it's coming from. If somebody, whatever it is in our relationships, Ed is my best friend. So I see our relationship based on how we can help each other in this process of yoga. So that's the friendship relationship. It's not about, just let's play video games or we'll watch a movie together. I mean, that is part of that, but this is the main foundation of the relationship with your mother, with anybody. So anything you do, pretty much, if God is the center of your activities, your activity is out of the karmic realm. So you're not getting karma. Now, does that mean that immediately you'll be completely, you'll have halo coming out of your head and different person? No. So Prabhupada explained that when you turn off a fan, the blades are still going, but it slows down. So over time, you will see transformation in your heart. And only you can tell that things are changing. Just like when you're hungry and you eat, you feel satisfied, you feel nourished, and you don't want more food. So only you know that, right? So same way, as you go along the process, you know you're satisfied. And then there's the scriptures that tell you at what stage, what you should be feeling. So just to make sure you're not speculating, you can say, okay, that's where I am. Okay, it makes sense. It's like a GPS. Tells you, the indicators, the landmarks kind of thing. It's a beautiful process. So yeah, in short, any activity, involve Krishna, and it's out of karma. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you think it's so selfish for us to be thinking that I don't eat meat because I want to improve my karma? Because, for instance, I don't eat meat because I feel bad about killing animals. But if I start thinking that I'm not going to eat meat because I'm going to improve on my karma, I'm trying to be nice to people because my karma is going to be higher. So I get a feeling that this is very selfish and so narrow-minded thinking. Instead of thinking that be good to people because that's how you want to be.
Right. And that's one way to think. Be good to people because that's how I want to be. And another way to say it is be good to people because it will please somebody. It will please God. So the whole point of yoga is a very personal, very intimate relationship with God. And so like I was telling her, in every action, the thought is, I want to include him and I want to make sure I act in a way that God is pleased. So I'm being nice to so-and-so because I know that person is also a part and parcel of God, has Krishna sitting inside the heart. So I want to be nice to that person. I don't want to kill the cow because, cow is very dear to Krishna, or any animal per se. Food that we offer, there are different kinds of food that we offer, kinds of food we don't offer, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita what he eats. Patram, pulam, pushpam, he gives a description. So we
shouldn't be thinking about karma in so much.
Right, so like I said, this is the karmic realm, the material realm. Spiritual realm is all about God, and why we want to do things is because of a person, somebody up there. Here, it's all karmic. Yes, it can be slightly selfish or very grossly selfish.
But is that selfishness actually justified? Because you're not gaining something material out of it.
Why not? You're not getting bad karma. You're either getting bad karma or you're getting good karma, right?
Yeah, but it's not something which you're dictating. Let's say if I avoid this next life, definitely I'll get this. There is no certainty.
There isn't.
Yeah. So you are taking a big risk over here. So it is kind of justified. You're doing something
What do you
good.
mean justified?
His question was basically we are not trying to don't justify every action with karma. Right?
Yeah, don't think about
Don't think karma. I will not kill that animal because it'll give me bad karma.
Initially, if you don't have that conception of God, at least you're living a goodness life. Life on the platform of goodness is tinged with selfishness. That's why it's not absolute. Absolute is full. That's why it's called absolute, because there is no selfishness. There is no personal gain. There is no material gain. There is no sense gratification. It's beyond that. But as long as you're in the karmic realm, whether it's goodness, passion, or ignorance, it is slightly selfish, and everything you're doing is for your own sense gratification or your own personal things. And you know what? While in the process of yoga, those things could be there too. But it's a gradual process. They wither away, and slowly one becomes a pure devotee. Does it help? Does it help? Okay. Yes.
What I think is.
Oh, 1 second. You ask questions. I'll just. Okay.
Some people say that human beings are born for some reason, and
Mhm.
which is predefined. So is that true?
Human beings are born for some reason. Athata Brahma Jigyasa. Inquiring into the absolute. That's the whole point. Vedanta Sutra. Human form of life is the most apt life. Because there is suffering, we question life. We question why things are happening around us. So that's the purpose of life. It's connecting back to the absolute. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, what I think is, what he said, that we should not keep on worrying about the karmas and all. What I think is,
Did he say that?
yeah, he said that we are being selfish.
Finish your question.
No, I don't have a question. I have a perspective. What I think is, it's not important to care about is this right to God or not. You know, that's where the problem is. Different religion, different God. They say different philosophies. Okay, nobody knows what's the right and what's the wrong. So what I think important is, like, all this stuff, it gives you different perspectives. This is philosophy, it's not reality, okay? So it will make you think, and this is very important. You should think on your own, and you should decide on your own. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very easy, to defend yourself. If someone put a blame on me about eating meat.
So let me just
You know,
pause you
it's
for a
very-
little
it's
bit.
very
You said
easy.
nobody knows right. Nobody knows what is right. You said that, right? So what makes you think that what you know is right?
I don't know. I'm looking for the right thing.
And you also said this is not real.
This
But
is
guess
one-
what?
This is wonderful.
And
wonderful
one more thing you said is that we should make our own decision.
Yeah.
Guess what? The whole process is about making our own decision. It starts from who we hear from, what authority we choose, what path we follow. We're constantly making our own decision. Nobody can push you into the process of yoga. Even if they do, forcefully, let's say they're pushing in the process of yoga, you're not going to go anywhere, because unless you make that clear choice, you don't have to go anywhere. So throughout the process, it's the process of question and answer. You question, you receive an answer. It's a process of identifying what's good for me. Some people get married, some people remain brahmacharis. Some people do a job, some people live in the temple. Some people do deity worship at the temple. Some people are serving by, speaking at presentations at different schools, colleges. So everything is depending on what we want to do. The point is to bring it to the source. Know what the purpose of life is, and you know where to go. If you want to go to New York and you end up in Boston, that's not the ideal result. So you know where to go. Whatever vehicle you need and whatever GPS information you use that and you get there. Walking, driving, you choose the method. But the point is, you're constantly making a very known and determined decision. And sometimes it's against your nature, sometimes it's against what you like, sometimes it's something you absolutely love. But you're the one making the decision. So it's very real. There are many people who are living their lives like this. And guess what? I can speak for myself. My life is truly 1,000,000 times better before I had any idea of the process of yoga. I'm happy. I feel I have an understanding of life. I have clarity of goal, what I do, who do I do it for. I have a purpose in life. Do you know how hard it is? I mean, Oprah, I was just hearing an interview, and she was mentioning she has so much money, and then she was completely stuck that, okay, her channel stopped. Now what does she do? Go around the world, spend the money, make a children's hospital in Africa, or what does she do? Completely clueless. Guess what? I'm 25 years old, and I have I wouldn't say that I'm living life like that, but I have a clear understanding where I want to be at her age. And I know what my ultimate goal is when I die, what I want to be thinking about. I'm thinking about the time of death from now. It's a preparation. It's what everybody's looking for. A guideline, a direction in life. That's what this is providing. And for thousands of years, there has been people who have been learning this, teaching this, learning this, teaching this. It's called disciplic succession, Guru Shishya Parampara. And people have been benefiting from it.
Yeah, it's amazing that people are getting benefiting, but believe me, I feel the same, okay? And I don't believe in God at all, but I feel the same. I know what I want to do. I know what I'm doing right now, okay? But I always visualize different people, okay? If I visualize a terrorist up there in the hell or heaven before making the judgment by the God, okay, that's how the story is, okay? That's how the story is, that when you die, you go up.
What story?
That's how this all comes up. Like when you die, somebody comes to pick you up. You go somewhere up over there, and then they'll decide whether you go to hell or you go to heaven. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I always visualize what a terrorist
sure.
will do. Okay. If a terrorist is standing right over there, and then the decision is going to make whether he's going to hell or heaven, I think it is very easy for a terrorist to justify him that what he has done is right. I think so, because
if you're basing it on your mind and your intelligence, then you can be right doing whatever you want, and you can feel good about it. The point is, there has to be a basis. There has to be a standard, and the Vedas is the basis, is the standard. Whether you follow the Vedas or you don't follow the Vedas, you prove it right anyways. If you follow the Vedas, there are certain points that happen in your life. If you don't follow the Vedas, it tells you what happens in your life. And if you look at your life or anybody's life in today's world, that's exactly it. So the Vedas are absolute truth. And no matter whether you follow or you don't, you question it or you don't, you are proving it right. So a terrorist might be killing millions of people and thinking that person is going to a good place. But guess what? He can think whatever he wants.
that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter what he thinks.
What I'm saying is, if a terrorist, okay, he always thinks he's doing right, okay? Obviously, otherwise he won't be doing it.
We all think we are doing right.
Yeah.
We rationalize at all times.
Yeah. See, that's what he thinks all the time. Everybody thinks that what they are doing is right.
We're terrorists. Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I think is, because
So when you get the reaction, then you recognize, like, my God, why did this happen to me? Somebody close dies, or some kind of disease happens, or something happens, or you get bad grades for, that's not nothing, getting a bad grade. And we question, I studied so much. Why me? That guy didn't even study anything, and he got like an A grade. So, you act according to how you like, and you get your reactions. And that's how people are living and being born and dying. Yes?
I think like the karmic stuff and all that is pretty cool. I know, but I was just going like on your example on Oprah. You know how she's like completely clueless because she has all this money.
I shouldn't have said that. I felt.
Well, I know what
Yeah.
what the point is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like all the extra stuff, but I'm saying like, couldn't it be that like maybe that's what she wanted in her life, and she worked through it, and she's clueless because she has it. Like you say like you have your point in life and where you want to be like, but once you have it, couldn't it be possible that you'd be as clueless as her? Once you have achieved what you have.
Oh, okay. So yes, I talked about spirit and matter. Matter is temporary, dull, and dead. So when you get something, let's say you want something material, you want an iPhone, right? You get it, and like, okay, cool. You play with 3 months, and then you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? The 4G, the 4GS, or whatever. You go on. So that's exactly when you have material desires. You get it. And then you're like, okay, I was happy, but I'm not. What's next? Whereas with spiritual life, it's an eternal process. You're eternally blissful, full of knowledge, and happy. So that's the difference. And even in this world, while living, you can feel that. When you're doing certain things, certain kinds of work, they bring you a lot of happiness and joy. As long as you're doing it, you do certain different kind of things. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, bad things don't happen to people who are in the process of yoga. They still die, they get diseases. But the thing is, the perception changes. So there is detachment. Let's say if I'm a materialist, I love my house, I love my wife, I love, whatever gadgets I have. And immediately when I lose it, I'm sad, devastated. I need counseling, I need, medicines. Whereas a spiritualist, because of the knowledge of the absolute, they understand, okay, so-and-so passed away. The soul is probably at a better place. They have a clear understanding, and that understanding changes how you perceive the reality. You are living in a real world.
So what I got from what you said is that, like, I'm just thinking from a point of like desire, like if you get what you desire.
Mhm.
So basically, she, like, let's just pretend she has like a material desire, and once it's satisfied,
Mhm.
she'll need another desire because it's material. So
Right.
if you get a spiritual desire, you'll be satisfied eternally.
Yes.
Eternal satisfaction.
Yes.
Okay.
No more hankering.
Right.
Good? Okay.